Well, I'm back to making these as promised. Chainsaw Man Episode 8 is here, and as expected, it's directed by Shota Goshizono. If you're not familiar with his works, just look at Ranking of Kings Episode 21, one of the best looking episodes this year. It's not exactly a surprise that this Chainsaw Man episode, just like the rest, looked absolutely phenomenal, and I'll break down the visuals. Like and subscribe if you enjoy, and let's get started. As always, I'll start with the actual storyboards, which of course are done by Shota Goshizono, and the best thing about his storyboards is how dynamic they are. The backgrounds are a part of the scene itself. The shot compositions, not to be confused with compositing, is absolutely top notch, with interesting placements for the non-existent camera. Of course, every episode so far featured a somewhat similar style, but that just allows his work to feel even more natural. Speaking of which, this was Goshizono's boldest work yet, at least from what I have seen. His Ranking of Kings episode was extremely well animated, but aside from a couple of unconventional scenes, it wasn't that experimental. This episode was unconventional for almost its entire duration, and I loved every second of it. Goshizono was given a lot of freedom while still sticking to the conventional character designs. You can find impact being skipped entirely, bold background movement, extremely creative camera angles. Of course, we'll talk about the scenes in detail when we get to the animation part of the video, but I adore how bold and different the storyboarding was for this episode. As for the actual artwork, everything was again perfect looking besides a couple of cuts. From the gorgeous everything really to the eerily realistic faces, especially of Makima after she got shot. Eeriness is something this episode had plenty of, thanks to the brilliant sound design and the CGI. We'll talk about the latter in a second. The sound was amazing. The way you could hear the bags being zipped open before Makima got shot, the way the snake devil disappeared with absolutely no audio cue, and the calming soundtrack that played while the most insane stuff happened on screen. I know this is a visual breakdown, but I had to mention those things. Alright, let's now move on to the animation and go scene by scene. I won't spend too long on the opening sequence. I've talked about the character acting a lot by this point. Notice how you can tell that Himeno is shifting around a lot just by looking at the shadow on the door. If that's not clever storyboarding, I don't know what is. Some amazing physics as Denji hits the chair, which hits the chair next to it, which then slowly falls over. I would like to remind you that anime doesn't have a physics engine like video games do. It's the animators and their imagination. More character acting follows. Sandal opening Sakuga, because why not? You can also find this unbelievably good cut of Himeno taking off his shirt, and if that wasn't complicated enough, they drew this at an angle on the mirror. Also, drawing these bottles from so many angles when the fridge door opens cannot be easy. More character acting follows, as well as a first person shot, because why not? The only complaint that I have from this entire episode is this cut right here. Denji is not that well synced up with the bed. Maybe if the cut moved a bit faster, it wouldn't be noticeable. I won't rant about everything else from this point on, just know that there wasn't a single static shot of a character. Every cut had character acting, which again is absurd. There is one sequence that I have to talk about. This one right here. Of course, there's the classic character at the center of the screen with the fisheye effect on the background, but why are these background characters so well animated? Why does this random guy have a 10+ frame walk cycle? This really is a passion project, isn't it? Also, just the nicest walk cycle and fabric animation for Makima. Notice how she looks to the side as the guy walks past her. That subtle character acting is what truly blows my mind. Reiner did a similar thing in an Attack on Titan episode. Also, why does everything look so good? Why is this sequence just absolute cinema? The hypothetical camera is placed on one side of the train as it follows this guy. He has a really fluid walk cycle while he wipes his hand in a hyper-realistic way. He also does a quick little head shake, maybe to shake off some drops of water on his face that splashed on him when he washed his hands. That's attention to detail. This scene was animated by Takuya Ninuma because of course it was. I have already talked about the music in this scene and how well it juxtaposes with the visuals. And finally, we get to the action. And the very first sequence is so impressive. This is quick cuts done right. They used about 15 cuts in 12 seconds and all of them served a purpose individually as well as collectively. The cuts allow you to see how characters react in various ways. Aki tries to take this guy down directly while Power runs underneath the tables to sneak up on the enemy. A very cat-like move. You have a first-person shot with gorgeous background animation that perfectly lays out Power's movement. There's a quick cut of plates getting broken which gets across the collateral damage. The quick cuts collectively get across a feeling of urgency. The next sequence, oh boy. There's a close-up of the guy's face followed by a zoom out. Notice how him breaking through the wall has no impact whatsoever. No impact frames, no camera shakes. The impact is instead transferred to Kon breaking out of the building. Every cut before that seamlessly flows together, including these amazing impact frames, which show up after the impact, interestingly enough. The artwork is a bit questionable around this part, to be honest. The effects are really really interesting as well. As he slices out of corn, the initial effects have these thick, sketchy outlines, while the effects after that don't have any outlines whatsoever. I think some funny business is going on in the second key animation department. You can also find speed lines in a scene without any movement, another interesting visual. Corn actually dissipates into digital smoke, and some amazing perspective shots follow. The first cut follows Aki from below the waist, and actually keeps shifting. A second later, we get the best looking cut in the entire episode. Aki running towards Katana Man is simply phenomenal. People often talk about movie level animation. This, ladies and gentlemen, is movie level animation, if not better. Amazing background movement with Katana Man perfectly synced up with it. Aki in this ridiculously detailed outfit showcasing lifelike body language, the sense of weight and force, it's perfect. There's more to action animation than just the fast moving, difficult to follow stuff that modern anime does. The entire segment is nuts. It's not just the characters, the backgrounds are always moving as well. The choreography is amazing, the characters go in and out of frame, it gets across the chaotic nature of this fight. Also, these might be the coolest impact frames ever. It's also worth noting that Katana Man switches between 2D and 3D during these scenes. We'll talk more about the CGI in a second. Aki's curse is brilliantly handled, with these hands appearing and distorting the background around it. The actual visual is fully CGI and looks uncanny. Well, a guy with a sword sticking out of his head just got crucified by what appears to be the devil himself. I think it's supposed to look uncanny. Also, the hard cut to the seemingly dead body with the opposite color schemes is really good. More character acting because why not? More amazing effects animation because why not? More background animation because why not? The ghost devil is initially hand drawn by Curie Lu. Is that how you pronounce it? But its final form is CGI, which again looks uncanny, but again it's a literal ghost. What do you expect? I think that's the point. The snake devil is CGI as well, but it doesn't look that out of place. It blends in about as much as a snake that's the size of a whole city should blend in. Also, the character acting for Himeno near the end is particularly impressive, a lot of which is animated by Koki Fujimoto. As for the CGI, I have already mentioned it all. The models for the Ghost Devil and Aki's curse looked uncanny and out of place, which is kind of the point. The Snake Devil looked quite good. Katana Man himself swapped between the dimensions a fair bit, but since both his body and outfit is mainly black and so is the line work, it doesn't exactly stand out much. The compositing was on point. I do wonder why use all that digital blood. I don't think it looks bad, I just wonder why. The art direction as always was phenomenal. This was my favorite episode so far in terms of visuals. Everything up until this point was so polished it was a bit unnerving. It was almost refreshing to see some issues with the key animation at times. This was probably the most visually ambitious episode this year, and I love that. The same old perfect normal animation is boring. I love this episode. Of course people are complaining, they always are, about the CGI, about the slow motion for some reason. I don't know and I don't care. So that was it. Did you like this episode? Comment down below. Make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and until next time.